Have you seen these monsters in your campaign? This week, we take a look at 5 creatures that you may have never fought, but definitely should. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese, and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our channel recently. We are getting pretty close to 1,000 subs, and I'm actually blown away every single time I see that number go up. So thank you all so very much for your support. And of course, remember to like, comment, and share this video as well, because that stuff helps a ton. So, I am currently running a campaign with some of my friends, and many of them are very experienced players. So I have been finding it difficult to find monsters with which they aren't super familiar. Once you've played this game enough, you just kind of recognize everything, and nothing is new or exciting like when you first started. Now, of course, I don't have time to homebrew every single monster they fight, so I decided to do a deep dive into the bestiaries of 5e and find some creatures they may not have seen. And honestly, I was surprised by what I found. We've all seen the beholders, illithids, and dragons of the monster manual, but there were many monsters that I really wasn't familiar with at all, and a lot of them were really, really cool. After looking through the books, I decided to share my findings with all of you and tell you about 5 of the coolest creatures that you may have never seen in your campaigns. Starting off with number 5 from Volo's Guide to Monsters, we have the Neogi. If you're like me, you've genuinely never even heard of this monster until now. One of my friends told me to look it up, and boy am I glad I did, because these creatures are a thing of nightmares. Neogi are essentially monsters with the body of a spider and the head and neck of an eel. If that doesn't scare you enough, the smaller 2 classifications of these creatures are tiny and small, so they can genuinely be spider-sized. The 3 types are Neogi Hatchling, Neogi, and Neogi Master, topping out at a medium-sized creature. The backstory behind these things is nuts. They originated on the material plane, but have since spread to several other realms of existence, just invading and dominating other races of creatures. They started out with Umber Hulks, and now every Neogi who lives to be mature gets their own personal Umber Hulk mind slave to take over. They're lawful evil and have absolutely no concept of loyalty or obedience if there is an absence of absolute authority. So essentially, their entire society revolves around being powerful enough to literally dominate less powerful beings than yourself. If you're wondering why I'm talking about domination and mind slaves, it's because these things can literally just dominate creatures as an innate ability. The Neogi and Neogi Master have an action called Enslave, which requires the target to make a wisdom save or be charmed and forced to follow the commands of the Neogi. Neogi Masters also get some innate spellcasting, including spells like Counterspell, Dimension Door, Hold Person, and Hunger of Hadar. So yeah, I don't know about you all, but the idea of alien spider eels that dominate people's minds is pretty terrifying to me, and I really want to toss it into some of my campaigns now. The next monster is one that is more commonly seen than the others, but after reading heavily into their descriptions, I don't think they're appropriately utilized much. Number 4 is the Hobgoblin. Again, I think we see plenty of Hobgoblins, and we hear about Hobgoblins a lot, but they're actually a much cooler and more intimidating opponent than we give them credit for. Hobgoblins are vastly different than your standard goblin, and I think it's because of that goblin bit in their name that they are misrepresented pretty often. While goblins are chaotic, disorganized, and often cowardly, hobgoblins are actually lawful, organized, and completely militaristic. A hobgoblin army is split into several different legions, each led by a hobgoblin warlord. These legions are all loyal within themselves, each hobgoblin being undyingly dedicated to the success and growth and power of its legion. But each legion may not get along super well with other legions, oftentimes breaking out into an all-out melee if the more aggressive ones are not restrained when they meet up. The biggest thing that stood out to me is how truly tactical a hobgoblin warlord is. They fight with their military in intelligent ways. They dedicate time to performing thorough reconnaissance on an enemy to find their strengths and weaknesses before committing to a battle. If they're sieging a city, they will cut off their trade routes and starve them of resources before actually moving in. They are so far removed from being these chaotic bands of roaming barbarians that we associate with goblins that I think, if done well, can be a real force to be reckoned with. For a low to mid-level party, I think a Hobgoblin militia could create an awesome adventure arc that would not only be unique, but also rather challenging. Number 3 is an ooze from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, the Obliques. Now, I've never been a huge fan of oozes. I don't like the idea of a pretty much mindless enemy that just destroys everything it comes in contact with. It doesn't make for a good villain, so they kind of just end up being fodder. The Obliques, however, flips that entire idea on its head. The lore states that Obliques were created by mind flayers while experimenting with different types of oozes, and as tends to be the case with mind flayer related things, these oozes are capable of assaulting the minds of their opponents. There are 3 types of Obliques: Oblique spawn, adult Obliques, and the elder Obliques. The Oblique spawn can't really do anything in ways of mind control, but the adult and elder have some wild abilities. These oozes feed on the thoughts and memories of their prey, and once they've done that, they can actually create an exact impersonation of that creature. To me, this creature offers some seriously fun opportunities for roleplay. There are few things more terrifying than a creature that can absorb the mind of someone else and then create an exact replica of that person down to the way they look, sound, and feel. Not to mention they can actually create impersonations of multiple creatures at once. And not to mention, they're not too shabby in combat either. The process of absorbing memories has this fun mechanic where the target has to subtract a d4 from any ability or attack roll, and every time it has more of its memories absorbed, it grows to a d6 and a d8 and so on until it ends at a d20. Oh, and the Elder Obliques' memory drain also deals 8d10 psychic damage, so yeah, it hurts. Number 2 is another group of monsters from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, the Star Spawn. I freaking love the Star Spawn. These are a group of very Lovecraftian creatures whose abilities synergize incredibly well together and make for an absolutely brutal combat encounter. The Starspawn are the foot soldiers of the Elder Evils, beings of unfathomable power and age that are shackled to their own planes of existence, unable to assert their dominance on the material plane and its adjacent planes. The Starspawn, however, are not shackled to those planes. Their features revolve largely around dealing psychic damage and manipulating the battle by shifting space itself. There are 5 types of Starspawn in the book: the Grue, the Hulk, the Larva Mage, the Mangler, and the Seer. The Larva Mage and the Seer are the magic users, and the rest are brawlers that can just wreak complete havoc on a party. Just as an example of why I love these creatures, I'll tell you about a fun interaction they can have. So all of these creatures are immune to psychic damage, but the Hulk actually has an ability called Psychic Mirror, which reads as follows. If the Hulk takes psychic damage, each creature within 10 feet of the Hulk takes that damage instead. The Hulk takes none of that damage. Now, the Seer has an ability called Collapse Distance, which essentially teleports a creature to a space within 60 feet and deals 6d12 psychic damage to any creature within 10 feet of that space. So the Seer can drop a creature within 10 feet of the Hulk, and the Hulk can intentionally fail the save to then bounce that 6d12 psychic damage to any other creature within 10 feet of it. So that means if a creature is within 10 feet of the place that they dropped the one creature, they take 6d12 from that, and then if they're also within 10 feet of the Hulk, they'll take an additional 6d12 from that. And there is plenty of opportunity for stuff like this to happen. All in all, these guys can make for a super fun and extremely challenging encounter for your party with some interactions that just don't exist anywhere else in the game. My final type of creature is one that I lovingly refer to as the Other Fiend. They're not demons, they're not devils, they are Galatz. These things have been tucked away at the end of the monster manual all these years, and I have very rarely seen them used. And let me tell you, that's a shame, because these fiends are really cool. I think the reason that they aren't used much is because we don't have as much information on them as we do with demons and devils, so it is a little bit more difficult to find their place in the world, but actually, of the fiends, Galatz are the easiest to justify getting involved with your campaign. Demons are chaotic, the devils are lawful, but the Galatz are neutral. The lore says that they were created by Asmodeus as a form of fiend not bound by the laws of hell. He kept the book with their true names, which is a method of controlling fiends, with the hags that created the first Galatz. In some random chaotic series of events, these books were lost to the aeons, and now nobody controls them. So the Galatz serve no master. They are completely off the leash and will do whatever the hell they want, whenever they want, so long as it serves them. You want to hire some Galatz to help you annihilate an army? Fork over a bunch of gold and they'll do it. But you better make sure that the offer is high enough, because all your enemy has to do is offer more, and suddenly you're on the receiving end of a Galath force. The Galatz have several different classifications, each with a very distinct identity. There are casters, brawlers, manipulators, all ranging from CR 5 to CR 13, and that's just in this one book. Honestly, I'd love to see more information come out about these, because though the lore is minimal, I think it is very interesting. And a neutral fiend can create such conflict in a campaign that a demon or a devil just don't provide due to their chaotic and lawful natures. So if you haven't considered putting these in your campaign yet, I highly recommend it because they are truly awesome opponents. Well, those are the 5 creatures that I've found that I want to see more of in my campaigns. Obviously, there are plenty of other creatures that may not be utilized super often, so let me know in the comments below if you have any in mind. I would absolutely love to do another video like this one where I'm covering even more lesser known monsters to toss into my campaigns. But until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.